Hey class, how's it going? Hope you guys are all staying safe and healthy out there during this pretty awkward time. Um, so my story for this week was when we went to see The End of the World by Donnie Morningside, age 11 and fourth, by Neil Gaiman. Um, Damien already covered some of Neil Gaiman, so I won't go super in depth about him in general, but as that I'll just speak on my own personal experience with him. I think he's probably my favorite author. I wrote two of my favorite books in American Gods and Good Omens, and he wrote many of my favorite short stories, and probably my favorite comic book series of all time, Sandman. So, if you find yourself enjoying his writing, and a lot of his writing is generally pretty similarly themed, like kind of like odd, peculiar, macabre, or like mythological, like you'll love any of these books. But so I have a different book. I sorry, I took my story from this collection of short stories I own, so it might differ a little bit from what you have. It's the same story, but my pages are different. I picked this story because not it's not really one of my favorites per se, but I like it. But I thought it had a lot to offer uh, as to learn from as writers. Um, like the first thing, probably, and it's probably the most obvious, is perspective, right? Your point of view, but not just your point of view, but actually like really embodying the character that you were speaking from that first person, which is not always easy to do, but I think he does a really good job in this story of writing from the perspective of an 11-year-old girl. Um, and she does things like she just rambles on, like the way an 11-year-old girl will ramble on and tell her stories, like a lot of run-on sentences because she just keeps going on and on. And there's even a lot of little things in the within the story, like he purposely misses apostrophes. Actually, I'll read you an excerpt that kind of contains a lot of what I'm talking about. It's probably on your first page, actually. Um, very very close to the beginning. She says, my dad's potato salad is made with tiny new potatoes, which he boils. Then, while they're warm, and he uses the wrong form of there, he pours his secret mix over them, which is mayonnaise and sour cream and little onion things called chives, which he sautés in bacon fat and crunchy bacon bits. When it gets cool, it's the best potato salad in the world, and better than the potato salad we get at school, which tastes like white sick. So he does this like using the wrong there. He also uses there was something else here that he did, but I think he misses an apostrophe somewhere else. But like I think the most ingenious thing he does is like he says it's my dad's secret recipe, and then immediately gives you the secret recipe, which is such a kid thing to do. And I thought like there's like little things like that that I think are great to pick up on as a writer. Like adding little things like really can enhance your story. Um, the second thing is probably just his use of setting, like the way he describes the setting. It's very similar to like Bullet in the Brain, whereas like the protagonist kind of moves his field of vision. You kind of like he starts describing like the ceiling after he's his head is pointing up because the gun is under his chin. Um, she's like looking out a car window and just kind of just describing things as a kid would, and through that we get a good idea of what's going on. And he describes this pretty like fascinating world where like these extraordinary things are kind of occurring, but they're totally normal to her because this is just the world they live in. Kind of like this world we live in right now is totally out there. It could be a Neil Gaiman story. It could have been in another world. Uh, but she does these. But yeah, the way he describes the setting is great. Uh, and I think like the last thing that he does that I think that maybe we don't think about as writers, or we should really, because it's what we love. But we should write what we know, like write what interests us. He obviously loves like mythology. There are a lot of references to. I just dropped my book. He a lot of references to like angels. A lot of references to like the Egyptian god in the story, whose name escapes me right now. But he calls her like the cat Hedi thing, which is like the Egyptian god, and even a few other things. But and if you read other Neil Gaiman stories, he very much incorporates that into all his stories. Like, I mean, if you've ever read American Gods, that's basically just him flexing mythological, every piece of mythological knowledge he has. I mean, he also wrote a book called Norse Mythology, where he kind of like retells in more modern language a lot of old Norse tales, which is a great book if you've never read it. So I think as writers, there's just something else we could take away. Like maybe sometimes we want to expand horizons, which is great, but writing what we know it sometimes produces our best stuff. And writing what we know well, I mean, it's just a lot of fun. Um, so I guess I'll leave you with a couple questions to discuss. One, like, do you guys find that you use enough of what you know and love in your stories, or do you try to stray away from it, or do you want to try to do it more and in a way that he does, like take your interests and really put them in your stories? And two, just I kind of describe things that I found that stuck out to me as a writer. What are the things that stuck out to you as a writer in this story that you think need pointing out that I probably missed? I'm sure there's a lot because there's a lot going on in this story. Yeah, all right. Stay safe and have fun.